That's all we can see with these senses. The beings that live on the moon, they have a totally different type of body than we do. It's called a body of soma ras. Rasa means nectar. So there's a certain kind of heavenly nectar which the moon beings, their bodies are made out of. And this is imperceptible to us. So anyway, this is what I'm telling you. The Vedas say that there's life in the sun, for instance. How could there life be? There couldn't be life like we have on Earth in the sun, that's for sure. Although I might say that, they found creatures even on Earth, in the bottom of the ocean. There are these pits in the bottom of the ocean, volcanic pits, where intense superheated water is coming out. Hundreds and hundreds of degrees under extreme pressure. Now you or I couldn't live there. First of all, we'd be crushed by the pressure of the ocean. And it's so hot, we'd just be boiled in an instant. But scientists have found living beings that live right there in the middle of that. It's some type of worm-like creature that prospers right on the edge of these cracks, lives in this superheated water, and takes the mineral nutrients that's coming out of these volcanic cracks. Some kind of big 3-foot long, 1 meter long pink worm. So, you see, even on Earth, there are creatures that can live, flourish in conditions that we couldn't live in. So the Vedas say, yes, on other planets, which seem to be uninhabitable to us, there are forms of life. And they live in a total different dimension. We can't even see them. So therefore, we don't have any problem with what scientists say the moon is like, or Mars are like, or the sun is like. Because we understand that there are different dimensions of consciousness, different dimensions of reality, so to speak, perceptual reality. And again, this is the great cycle of karma, great cycle of birth and death. And all souls are moving through this cycle, which means one time you and I, because we've been here, we can't trace out the beginning of our existence in this material world. We can't really trace back the first birth. So we've been here so many millions of lifetimes. So at some time in the past, we were also on other planets. At some time in the past, we were also maybe worms under the earth. At some time in the past, we were birds in the tree. At some time, we were dogs and cats and monkeys and this and that. All forms of life the soul has passed through. And now we are in the human form of life. So therefore the Vedanta Sutra is speaking to every human being. Atato Brahma Jignasha. Now that you have achieved the human form of life, inquire into Brahman. Because that's the special mission of the human form. The human form is one form of life which is doesn't really fit in so comfortably into this material world. Therefore, we human beings, we have problems, We have psychological problems, for example. You see, people get alienated. People get overwhelmed by doubts. Why am I here? Who am I really? What is life really for? This is the capacity of the human brain to ask such questions. Whereas a dog or a cat, although it's also a soul just the same as us, does not have that type of equipment. It doesn't have that karma to be able to inquire in that way. No dog is coming in here to sit down and listen to me talk. Dogs just don't have interest in the subject. They don't have, the equipment to inquire into Brahman, the absolute, the spiritual realm. But human beings do. So this is what the Vedas say to each one of us. Like the Upanishads, Tamasi Mam Jyotirgama, come out of the darkness into the light. And this through inquiry. through investigation. So therefore this Vedic knowledge is there to answer the questions about what is the true purpose of our existence. The true purpose of the human form is to achieve liberation of the soul from matter. And that we can do as human beings. Again, it means that we have to accept a process of yoga, a process of linking to the Supreme. And that process I've explained already. Chanting of mantra, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, this is what we do. Hare means the energy of God. Everything is God's energy. But we're relating with it in a wrong way, in an illusory way. Krishna is the name of God as the supreme enjoyer. He is the enjoyer of all his energies, including us. We are meant to enter into a relationship of enjoyment with God, spiritual, transcendental enjoyment. And Rama means that enjoyment. So actually what this mantra describes is a relationship of intimate love with God. And when we speak of love of God, this is not just some vague, fancy. It's very specific and personal. We are persons as souls, and God is the all-attractive original person. And what we are looking for in this life, what we are looking for now, relationship, love, meaningful friendship, intimacy, that is to be found in Krishna, in God. Also among ourselves, but it is really found when Krishna, God, is at the center of all of our relationships, because we're all, as spirit soul, part of God. God is the one who is always between us. Two people can become very intimate, but there is always one other who's between them, and that's God. Because only by God's energy and the knowledge, the awareness that God is giving us from within the heart, that we can know another person. It's only by God's energy that we can see and speak and understand and relate. So the one is always between any two or three or five or seven, or however many number of people you want to mention. So to become conscious of that one, then that is opening up a whole new realm of relationship. And again, this realm is spiritual, means it is eternal, never broken by time. Because it is timeless, it is beyond time. Time is a feature of this world. Time is turning that great samsara chakra, that great wheel of birth and death. The soul is actually timeless in its essence. So, again, karma, there's material karma, material activities in which we try to enjoy this body, enjoy the senses of this body, enjoy this temporary world, be happy here, make this place our home. That's giving rise to a material reaction, another body. What we're showing God by that is, yes, we want to be here. So God says, all right, but you can't live forever in that body, so that body will die, and I'll give you a new body. And as long as you have your desires are flowing in this material way, you just keep getting newer and newer material bodies. But if we develop spiritual desires and the spiritual activities that go along with them, then we enter into the spiritual existence. That becomes the result of what we do. We enter into the personal presence of God. The soul manifests its own true nature as a divine liberated being. And the soul enters into an intimate, loving exchange with the supreme, ever liberated being, God or Krishna. Krishna, the name Krishna means all attractive. Because God has everything that we're looking for. Krishna has everything that we're looking for in life. Why are we attracted to people? Because someone is beautiful. So naturally, if a young man sees a beautiful girl, naturally his eyes follow her. And if a young girl sees a very handsome man, naturally her eyes follow him. That's natural. We're attracted also to fame. If someone very famous comes to town, you see Arnold Schwarzenegger, I don't know. For some reason he comes to Nijmegen. A lot of people want to see him. You see, because he's famous, or wealth, or strength, or knowledge, or renunciation also, the ability just to give up and walk away, go one's own way. That also makes a person attractive to others. So these are the rules of attraction. I think there was some movie with that name. These are the rules of attraction, these qualities. And the Vedas reveal that God is Bhagavan. He is the originating point of these attractive features. Like the sun is the origin of light. So when we advance in this spiritual yoga, then our consciousness becomes clear of this attraction to temporary things, matter, and we become attracted to the Supreme Being, God. And that happens even now. It's not something that, will take place after death. It can happen right now, because you are what you are right now. As I said, in essence, we're all spirit soul. We're all part of God right now. But as you all know, we all know, we can fall into illusion. We can fall into forgetfulness right now. We all have that experience. So that is what's happened to the soul. It's fallen into ignorance or forgetfulness. If a person gets amnesia, you see, or when we sleep at night and we have a dream, you might have a dream that you're a bird or something. So you've forgotten your identity in this body, in your dream, or in amnesia. But you're still what you are. You still have that body. So similarly, the soul can also dream and forget. And that is what is happening now. So yoga is a process of remembering our spiritual nature, and remembering this eternal relationship we have with God. And I'm going to close now my talk, and I just want to say again, it's interesting that yoga, the word yoga, has the same meaning as the original meaning of the word religion, because religion, ligio, it's like ligaments. They hold together. We have this bone and this bone that form the arm. So these two bones are held together by ligaments, muscular tissue. And then we can move the arm like this because of the ligaments. So ligio means connection, just like ligament connects these two bones together. Ligio means connection, and re means again. So the real meaning of the word religion is to connect again with God. And that's actually the meaning of the word yoga. But this connection goes beyond mere faith. I didn't come here to preach to you some doctrine of faith. I'm not coming here to ask you to believe in something. You may believe in what I say or not, and that really doesn't interest me. I mean, I don't consider myself that I've, given a successful talk if someone's going to stand up, I believe. That's not going to interest me at all, because that kind of belief you can buy and sell. And that's usually what goes on. I'm not interested in making anyone believe in anything. But what I'm talking about is a process. Just like science is a process for understanding, deeper into material things. So yoga is a process for understanding deeper and deeper into spiritual things. It's a process. And just like science, they give you if you want to do a standard experiment, say you want to, here's some water. So science says water is H2O. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. 2 gases mixed together to form this liquid. Now that's amazing. You see? I mean, just by our senses, we'd never understand that. We could never imagine that this heavy liquid combination of two light gases. It's amazing, but science has a process by which that can be demonstrated. They have some laboratory equipment, run an electric spark through the water, it breaks it up, and then it can be measured. Yes, hydrogen, oxygen, twice as much hydrogen as there is oxygen, H2O. So if you accept the process, then you can see that water is H2O, if you accept and follow the process that science gives. Now if you say, well, why should I believe in that? Why should I follow that process? You see, yeah, then you'll have a problem. You'll never really be able to prove that hydrogen and oxygen forms water. Then it's just a question of belief. You can believe it or you cannot believe it. But you can never demonstrate it if you don't accept the scientific process. This is what I'm talking about when I speak of yoga. You can believe or not believe in what I say, and I don't really care. But what I'm here to tell you is that there's a process by which the things I'm saying can actually be tested and realized. But not realized in a test tube or on a spectroscope or something like that, but realized within consciousness itself, because consciousness is what we are. Our laboratory is consciousness. And consciousness is the primal ingredient of everything. I mean, everything we know about the world is based on consciousness. Everything that we think we are, every theory, even an out-and-out atheistic, materialistic person who says, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in soul, I just believe in matter, all of that is taking place on the basis of his consciousness, his awareness. So even a materialist can't escape that. All ideas rest on consciousness. So this is our laboratory, conscious work. And this is where we prove things. So the consciousness can be liberated from material attraction and material attachment. And this we have realized. I can honestly tell you that. That I can honestly tell you. I realized it, all these persons who are here from our ISKCON movement have realized it, and that's why we are here. That's why we are members of this movement. Because of this realization. So, as I said, I want to come to a close. And I thank you very much for being a very kindly attentive audience. That was nice. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. This is often the most interesting part. We also have brought some, by the way, we have brought some books here. And we've also brought some prasadam. Yes, prasadam. We have some spiritual food. This is a very important part of our lifestyle. We're vegetarian, but not only vegetarian. We follow the Vedic system of, there's a practice of purifying the food you eat by something called yajna, which roughly translates as sacrifice. Sacrifice comes from the Latin sacrum facere, which means to make holy or make sacred. See, the food we eat is a very, very great contributor to our karma. And this is something. Another thing. There's one other thing I want you to remember. The one thing was that, if you think you're matter, then you have to ask yourself, why do I suffer and why do I want to avoid death when matter itself doesn't care, is not conscious of suffering and death? That was one point I wanted you to think about. And another point is about how what we eat creates karma, because like the Vedas say, jivasya jiva jivanam, what we eat, what we need to intake into this body, for the body to live, are the bodies of other living beings. And that doesn't matter. One can be a carnivore or a vegetarian, meat eater or vegetarian. If you're a vegetarian, you're also eating the body of some plant, some fruit. So that's a law of nature. So yes, we're vegetarian, but that in itself is not liberating, just to be vegetarian. It's good. We recommend people to be vegetarian. Why? Because according to the Vedas, that is the natural food for human beings. That's what human beings are meant to eat. There's even medical evidence that I could talk about to show that too. Even in the Bible, in the first book of the Bible, Genesis, it says God gave to man as his food the plants, the seed-bearing plants. And he gave the animals to be master over. You see, now, to be master over something, it's a non sequitur, this term of logic. It doesn't follow that if you're the master of something that you could eat that thing. It doesn't follow at all. Just like if you get married or otherwise have a child, your child, especially when the child is newborn, the child is totally dependent upon you. You're the child's master. You determine whether the child eats or not. You determine, everything that's happening to the child. So the child is in your care, clearly. You're the master of that child because the child is helpless. But the fact that the child is fully dependent on you, does that give you the right to pop the child into the oven, the baby into the oven, and cook it up again? No? Law says you can't do that. You can't make an argument. Well, the child was just there for me, I was fully taking care of it, so I thought, why not eat it? It can't live without me anyway, so, it depends on me, so why not eat it? That type of logic will not fare well in a court of law. So, cows and horses and those kind of animals that we domesticate that can work for us. Yes, it says in the Bible we have the right to be their master, but it doesn't say, at least in the first book of the Bible, that we have the right to eat them. It says the plant. So even in the Bible, of course, then there's later things, and I won't get into that. But at least in the Vedas, it's very clear that humankind should be vegetarian. It's better. It is certainly brings us to a state of goodness. It frees the mind from a lot of obsessions, and a lot of passions, and a lot of evil desires if you just become a vegetarian. It's purifying. But it doesn't liberate the soul just to be a vegetarian. So therefore, there's a further process, yajna, sacrifice, to make sacred, by which the food we eat is purified. And this we do, and according to the Vedic scriptures, so we have brought that type of food for you today. It's very delicious. Everyone likes our food, so please, I'm inviting you all to take it before you leave. Have a look at our books. And if you have any questions, sometimes the question and the answer session is the most interesting part of the whole program. You may have a doubt about something I said, or you didn't clearly understand something I said, or you just may have a question of your own. Anything? Yes?
I ask myself, how do you know that the sense world is not real? Does that presuppose knowledge of something that is behind it? And how can you have this knowledge by kind of sense?
Well, you don't need to presuppose that there's something else behind it. Even science, modern science, which definitely does not make that presupposition. Even, like I mentioned, quantum physics, which is considered by many to be the cutting edge of science. Even science comes to a similar conclusion. At least certain departments of science. Because quantum physics, what does quantum physics say about the world? It says the world is just energy potential. It's just a vast field of electromagnetic energy. And there's these, these wave particles, they call them neutrons, photons, electrons, and they're just kind of doing their thing, you know. And there's no, quantum physics doesn't find any reason why these subatomic particles doing their thing, moving through emptiness, colliding, bumping off of each other, and different levels of energy exchanged between them and all of that. Quantum physics doesn't find any reason why that should look like this. You see, that's why in physics there's this big gulf between what they call the micro world and the macro world. The macro world is this, what we see. But you cannot explain this macro world from the micro world. There is no reason why a bunch of, photons, neutrons, electrons, protons should look like this as we're seeing it. In fact, it could look like anything. That's what some quantum physicists actually say. Our perception of this is something completely else. That's what many of them say. Our perception of this is something, it's a whole different, that's why some quantum physicists, they admit that consciousness is different from this. And it is consciousness, some, not all, some say that it is consciousness which is imposing the order on this that we are seeing right now. Otherwise, it's just a random energy field. So that's what science says. It's not religion. It's not presupposing anything beyond. That's what science says. At least some scientists, at least some, very influential scientists. Like I said, Niels Bohr, I quoted him. His famous quote, or one of his very famous quotes, is, physics does not tell you, physics cannot tell you what nature is. It cannot. It can only say something about nature. It is only what we can say about nature.
Does that mean that because this sense world is delusional, does that mean that there is something more real behind it? Or is it just a kind of delusional world? Maybe that's all we have. There is nothing.
Well, then there's a logical problem. You see, if you want to say that everything is just illusion, then you run into a very major logical problem. Because what is illusion? Illusion is something mistaken for something else. That's what illusion is. You see, illusion means you think that this is real, but it's not. So here, your illusion presupposes a reality. There, in your statement, we find a presupposition of reality. When you start talking about everything is illusion. Because illusion only means that you think something is real when it is not. Just like, let's say I have a very, I've developed a very first-class printing press and fiber weaver, and I have all this equipment in my basement, and I'm turning out 100 euro notes. I'm just feeding raw paper or material into one end, and out the other end are coming 100 euro notes. This is called counterfeit money. I guess you must have a term like German Falschgeld. In German they say false money, so counterfeit money. So I'm going, into the town with all my freshly printed 100 euro notes, and they look just like the real thing. I'm going around and spending this money, buying all kinds of stuff, buying cars, buying TV sets and refrigerators, and for nothing. Now that's an illusion. This illusion works because I'm giving the merchants something that they think is real. a €100 note, but it actually is not. So they're an illusion. I've tricked them. But if with all my fancy equipment, I print a type of money that is totally unknown in this world. I call it a gronk. There's no currency known as a gronk. So I print 100 gronk notes, and it says my own unique design, looks like no other money in the world. And I go down and I say, oh yes, I want to buy this Mercedes SEL 500, so I'll just pay you in my gronks. And I pull out a whole bunch of gronks. But guy's going to look at me and say, you're nuts, get out of here. Because the gronk has nothing to do with his experience. See, there's no way he can confuse it with something real. You see? So, someone who says that everything is just a big illusion and there's nothing behind it, he's starting with a gronk. And a gronk is not illusion. A gronk is so clearly unrelated to anything that we don't accept it. Illusion means you have to confuse something with something else. And therefore in mysticism, classical mysticism, and I'm talking even Western mysticism, not even Indian, they say in classical Western mysticism, as above, so below. That the idea is that this world is a reflection of a perfection. And you find the same thing in Bhagavad Gita, in the Sanskrit Bhagavad Gita, the example of a tree on a riverbank. So the world is compared to an upside down tree. And you ask yourself, where would we ever see an upside down tree with its roots upward and its branches down? Yes, a tree on the riverbank, look in the water, and you'll see a reflection of the tree, and it's upside down. So that's how this world is explained as an illusion. It's a reflection of a reality. That's Platonic philosophy also. Plato said the same thing. So yes, in that way you may categorize us. We are something like Platonists. We insist that there is an ultimate reality because that's the only thing that is logical. If you start to say everything must be just unreal, then in other words what you're saying, everything starts from zero. That's another way of putting it. But logic, ex nihilo nihil fit. From nothing you get nothing. That's logic. So how do you get something from nothing? You can argue that, as just some kind of personal belief, but you could never prove such a thing. You could never demonstrate it. Something, something far out to think about, how out of nothing something can come. But there's no demonstration of it. Yes?
Is there any symbolism or meaning in the cloth?
Yeah, this is a traditional dress for someone who's taking up spiritual life in the Indian or Vedic context. This cloth you'll see in India worn by sadhus. Sadhus means spiritual persons. And it's dyed this sort of color, just like the priests in the West. Generally the priests in the West, at least the Catholic priests, they wear black, but in India they wear a color like this. And we keep our hair short, but short, yes. This sika in the back, it's called a sika. This means that I have a spiritual master, I have a guru. And we wear these neck beads. This is a kind of sacred wood called tulsi. It comes from India. We mark our forehead with sacred earth and chant a mantra. So these are things that help us in developing this consciousness that we're speaking of. But I also should say that they're not absolutely necessary. And so it's not that to become God conscious or Krishna conscious, thou shalt only dress like this. There's no such rule. But, for us it's a kind of an enhancement, and it's also very simple. I don't, have to fuss around with, updating my clothes every year to keep in style. I just wear this. And that's good for spiritual life, just simple living, high thinking.
But women are dressed online, or?
Oh, they're wearing what's called saris. This is also a dress that ladies in India who are spiritually inclined, they dress in that way. All right, I don't know when this program's supposed to end.
Yes, we'll have to finish because there will be an examination at 5:45.
At 5:45. What time is it now? 5:30? Okay. All right, yes, so let's stop now. I thank you very much. But please, we have this food here we want everyone to take before you leave. So don't miss that.
Thank you.
All right?